Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Lockdown Conversations Series 2, 2021, and we are on episode 4. Hello to everyone out there in the drama world. It's a great pleasure to get all back onto here again. I hope you're all well and keeping well and staying safe. You know the usual story we do here on Lockdown Conversations. We have the comments below, and if you'd like to put your name or your festival or your group or whatever part of the country you're from, just to say hello to us here tonight on Lockdown Conversations, and we'll give you a like there for your comment. Okay, folks, tonight it gives me great pleasure to welcome all the way from Doonbeg, County Clare, winning director of Doonbeg Drama Group in 2017 of the Clare Galway Trophy, of the Night Alive by Conor McPherson. Mary, you're very welcome to Lockdown Conversations.
Thank you very much, Petty.
Mary, I suppose in these very strange times, this is our wee bit of drama to keep us all in touch with each other around the country, up and down, north and south. And the way I start the Lockdown Conversations, as you've probably seen, is I start with, how did Mary J. Egan get involved with amateur drama? Or how did amateur drama get involved with Mary?
Well, I suppose I go back, I'm not telling you how far back I'm going because I'd be giving away my age, but I can remember distinctly the first play that I saw in the Old Hall in Doonbeg. Now, I was definitely still in primary school. And what I remember about it is, I don't know if I even knew the name of the play, but I know it was The Country Boys since. But the song that's sung in The Country Boy by John Murphy is The Last Rose of Summer. And I can still hear it somewhere in my head. I thought it was just beautiful. And there was a neighbour of mine in it, of course, which made it even more interesting. He was playing Curly. And the fact that I knew him, you know, I was so excited, like I know an actor. And then when I went to secondary school, all-girls school, convent secondary school in Kilrush, we had a very good English teacher who was very interested in poetry and literature and drama as well. And she did, you know, the famous handbag scene from The Importance of Being Earnest. And it was funny, I wanted to be Lady Bracknell, but my friend who was English, the family had just moved back to Ireland, got the part, and I wasn't one bit happy, as I had to play a man. So that was the first part I've played, was a male actor. So I suppose after that, then I went on to what was then UCG, NUIG, and I would have started there in the early 70s. And it was a fantastic time because there were people in my class. I was doing English, was one of my subjects, and Marie Mullen, Gary Hines were both in my class. Mick Lally had just finished there at the time, but he was around the college and in the Tithe Yark. Sean McGinley started during those years, the late, great Pat Connaughton, whom we all remember. And it was the beginning of Druid, and it was the beginning of the art scene in Galway. You know, I remember Ollie Jennings, who went on to become manager of the Saw Doctors. He was kind of one of the people involved in the arts as well. So it was a wonderful time to be in Galway. And I can remember the first society that I joined, I went up, I got registered, told my parents to go home, and right, where's Dramasock? You know, that was it. Yeah. And I think Dramasock kind of took over more than study for a while, but we won't go there now. And I can remember Gary Hines very well because she was certainly dynamic and she was a force of nature, became auditor of Dramasock at the time and did a lot of interesting stuff. And one episode I remember very well, there was a university's drama festival and we went to Cork with a Spike Milligan play called Bedtime Story. And the main prop was a bed. Now, I cannot for the life of me remember how we got there. We got there somewhere or other. I think we had a bus, but we missed the bus. Some of us missed the bus back on the Sunday, and we had to wheel the bed through the middle of Cork, through the train station, and somehow we were allowed to bring it back on the train. So that's some of my early memories.
That's how it all began. And
that's how it all began.
Of course, Mary, in Doonbeg, there's a massive history of drama in Doonbeg.
Yeah. The festival was founded in 1962. And I remember being told that around then, or sometime in the 60s, there was a group rehearsing in Doonbeg, in the village itself. There was another group in Balaha, another townland, and another group doing a play in one of the northern townlands. So there was actually 3 groups doing plays within the parish, sometime in the early 60s or maybe late 50s. So the festival really is still going strong, and it was interesting. I remember, do you remember the Foot and Mouth? You don't, Paddy, you're far too young, but I remember it in 2001, I think. And we were doing All Souls Night, and a lot of festivals didn't go on, but Doonbeg decided that they would have a festival just for Clare groups. So all the Clare groups came, So until March last year, the festival got as far as the 5th night, but it has continued since then.
And you ran a very successful All-Ireland down there, confined finals, which was really good as well. So Mary, when you moved back to Doonbeg then after college and that, did you join then the local in Doonbeg?
What had happened was Doonbeg had done plays through the years, and the most successful of which was The Field. Oh God, I can't remember the exact year, sometime in the 60s. And they came second in the All-Ireland. And then they did plays intermittently, but when I went back teaching in my old school in 1979, there was nothing going on. And I was really surprised because the festival was very strong. So I had a chat with Mort McInerney at the time, and we started gathering, as I would call them, victims. Nobody was safe. I remember one, Margaret Dillon, who's been with us since then, she said, I never knew you before. You stopped me one day. I was cycling over the village and I'd heard that she acted. It was like that because, of course, there was no mobile phones. There was no social media. So it was all sort of getting people live, shall we say. So the first play we did was in 1980. Now, we didn't do it for a festival because, we were raw, most of us. There might have been a few experienced people in it. And we did The Field. And it went down very well. And then we did a few plays for a few years where we didn't go on the circuit. I remember the most successful, I suppose, was Many Young Men of 20, and I played Peg in that. And we did the musical version of that, which isn't often done. I mean, there's so many extra songs in it. And between teaching, singing, and acting, the throat now, and maybe the odd cigarette, the throat wasn't in great shape. But anyway, we entered our own festival because, of course, the play is so popular and it's a great crowd pleaser, and we won it. But of course, that was the only festival we were in 1984. And then we ventured as far as Scariff. I mean, we were getting really adventurous at that stage. We did The Importance of In Earnest, and going back to my first story about the importance, I was delighted this time that I got the opportunity to play Lady Bracknell, even though I was far too young, but I just loved the apart. I had cushions behind me and cushions in front of me to make me look bigger, and Sissy McMahon trying to put lines on my face. Mind you, I could play Lady Bracknell now, and that was my first acting award, which I got from the late Biddy White Lennon, you know. Yeah. So there's a lot of awards I don't remember, but I'll always remember that one because it meant so much, you know. So then in 1990, we decided that we would go on the road, and we did the field again, but with a different cast, apart from myself, playing Mamie round 2. Right. Yeah. And you know, I was a bit older, so I was nearer to her childbearing age, shall we say. And we went to, it was such an adventure, Paddy, because, you know, most of us had never been on the circuit before. So sure, we were thrilled. Yeah. Claire Morris took us. Ray Leonard was there at the time, and we were always so grateful to Ray Leonard because every time we applied to Claire Morris, we were taken. Same with Peter Mechanic. Now, it's a festival that I have wonderful memories of. And we went to prosperous Loughrea, had a festival at the time, and Doonbeg. So we managed to qualify for the All-Ireland, which was amazing. But on the other hand, I don't think a lot of us realised the enormity of it because we were on in Gorey, and that time everybody travelled by cars. Again, it sounds like the Stone Age, but there were no mobile phones. There was no motorway. So you can imagine the journey from Doonbeg to Gorey, you know, took a long time. But because I was teaching and I was also over the choir, I had to play for a funeral mass at 11 o'clock. So 3 of us left, Margaret Dillon, Helen and I, left Doonbeg at 12 o'clock, the day of an All-Ireland. And we arrived below at 6 o'clock. One of the men in the cast was outside. Where were you? The lorry broke down, I think, around Port Leisha, somewhere in Laois. Yeah. There was panic and consternation, and we were sort of there kind of going, well, what's the fuss about? Now, as a director now, if that happened, I would be the one going off my head. But we were kind of blasé about it. In a way, I think we were just... It was all new and it was all exciting, and you know, it was wonderful. We were delighted. I think, we came fourth, which wasn't bad for our first outing. So after that, then we did the circuit most years. I was just counting the other day how many productions have been done since 1980 by the group. There have been 40, including, I think it's 4 1-acts. And I was involved in 36 of those. Wow. So time to retire, I think.
Not at all. Don't be thinking like that. So when did you start directing then, Mary?
I started directing, well, I suppose it was by default. In 2011, Mort McInerney was quite ill. And there was a sort of, what would I say, a coup behind my back, which I wasn't aware of, that I should be the one to take over. Right, okay. And at that time, I was contemplating retiring. So I was going to Dublin for a retirement conference, but needless to remark, I wasn't telling anyone. The only ones who knew were my immediate family. And so I got this message and I went, it was late September. It was going into October, you know. So I gathered up the plays that I had. I went up on the train. I read 3 going up. I was above for the weekend. I read 3 more over the weekend, and I read 2 on the way down.
Good stuff.
And that's how I started, and I picked the Weir. So it was a baptism of fire, but at the same time, I think I was a bit of a frustrated director. Do you know what I mean? And I had done a couple of courses at that stage in summer school. I was very lucky, of course. My very first course was with the great Pádraig McIntyre. And no, seriously, it was a wonderful course called Bring On the Cat, which he explained to us on the last day. And I did a couple of more directing courses after that. So I was ready, but at the same time, I had a lot to learn. But again, we were very lucky. We reached the All Ireland, which was in Shercock that year. And sure, it was, it was a great year for us and we were thrilled. But again, I don't know that we were expecting anything because the final night, as you probably remember, the only two who went up were myself and Anne-Marie Doyle, who was playing Valerie in that play. And the rest of the lads were at home. And sure, we couldn't believe that we came second, you know.
Yeah.
And we saw the play that won. It was the 39th step. So, yeah. But it was a great experience. And I have to say that I love directing. I did one act in 2015, just in case I'd forgotten how to act. Do you know what I mean? But I much prefer directing. Now, maybe some of the cast might say I much prefer to be in control, but that's not true. No, I just like the process.
They're not here to talk tonight, so you can have your interrupt. So then, Mary, year after year, you were qualifying for All Ireland. You had some fantastic productions. The Cavalcaders is one that comes to mind. Fantastic cast, fantastic. The Price in Kilmuckridge. Give us a little bit on both of them there.
Well, the Cavalcaders
was amazing.
Yeah. When I was reading those plays in 2011, I'd read a couple of Billy Roach's. You know, I really like Billy Roach. I suppose Billy Roach, Conor McPherson, they would be two of my favorite playwrights. And I looked at the Cavalcaders then. I'd looked at it before and I looked at it that year. And I know one thing, like I knew I had the men for the singing. You know, I mean, really outstanding. Like I had Charlie Killeen, Mark May, Ken Blowers, and John Keane, who's a brilliant pianist, as we all know. See? And I was very fortunate. Now, the one thing I was worried about, like, it was enough to be directing the play, but the music was another element. It was like doing a musical, you know. And Mark happened to know a lady who had moved to Kilkeen, was involved in the choir called Olga Reynolds, and she'd done a lot of that in Dublin. Now, Olga since passed away, but she was wonderful. And she kind of took care of the singing and that side of it. And I mean, it's a play that, you know, I always will remember the songs from it, and I think all the guys will as well. There was some wonderful, wonderful songs, you know, Sayonara and Now Is the Hour, which are special memories for me. And it, you know, we did okay with it. As I said, we qualified for the All Ireland, and then in 2015, I hope I'm right, we did the Price. Now, the Price was a huge step up, like, because Conor McPherson, okay, his plays are in GZ, but coming from a rural background, we know the people, or we know versions of them. Same with Billy Roach, you know. But the Price, Arthur Miller, not done. I had never seen it, even though I think it had been in the Gaiety the previous year or two before that.
The 2 years before,
or the Abbey, maybe, I can't remember which one. But it was a huge challenge. But I knew I had the cast for it. I mean, I had Ken, and I had Charlie, and Marie, and Mark. I think anyone who saw it will remember Marcus Solomon, the Jew. You know, he was just amazing. And but my God, we had to work hard at it. You know, It was, you know, it was a tough play, and it was the play, Patty, I suppose people who know me anyway know this. We did very well with it. We won 6 out of 7 festivals. And, you know, we were being tipped to win it. And I never get ahead of myself, ever, ever. But that was the play where I cried afterwards. And I don't think I ever cried. I haven't since, haven't before about a play. But I just felt, because everything was right with it. And I knew it was right. You know, when you know in there, if it works. Yeah. So then we took a break. Yeah. Sorry, go on.
You took a break from 16
We took a break in 16, but I had been looking at Conor McPherson plays, and then I saw that his new play, I sent for it to Nick Hearn Books, and I read it, and I thought, God, I'd love to do that. And it was in the Dublin Theatre Festival in 2016, so I went to see it. Now, most of the plays all the other plays I directed, I had never seen before, and I prefer not to see them. But it just so happened it was there. And what I was more interested in was the set and the lighting, do you know? And like when we came to do it then, it was a very different, you know, all the characters were different. And I would never copy anyone because I want to do what I want to do. And when I went to cast it then, when the amateur rights were released, the following I went to see it in 2015. That would have been 2016 I started it. And I had a problem casting it. I had Ken and I had Anne-Marie and I had John Key, 3 experienced people. But I knew I needed a Doc and I needed an Uncle Morris. And I got Dave Handley, had seen him a few times, had never acted with him or directed him. And then I got Declan Honan, who was a past pupil of mine, and heard Declan reading, met him one evening in Ennis, and he had just done a few musicals, but the part was made for him, really, you know. But again, we worked very, very hard on it, but I loved the play and I loved the music. I don't know whether, you know, an audience, some people take notice of music, but I had read that Conor McPherson, when he was writing The Night Alive, there's a Canadian singer called Father John Misty. And, you know, he'd be writing like most playwrights and authors, writing during the night. And he always had Father John Misty playing in the background. So one of his songs became the theme song of the play. And every time I hear that, I just get this feeling in here, you know. Sometimes I just play it, you know, from my list, just because I love it, you know. So, we were lucky enough to get to the All Ireland, like unlike the prize where we were just flying, you know, but with The Night Alive, we got there, you know, with a couple of wins and seconds and whatever we got. But somehow the night, now, I don't think I had seen any of the other plays actually on the circuit because they weren't down our way. And then we were traveling, as you know. But I know the night it was on, you know, the feeling you get, everything went right. It just did, do you know? Now, everything can go right and somebody else is better than you.
Absolutely.
But it just happened to go right. As I always said, and I said afterwards, you know, the planets aligned for us. You need luck as well, Paddy.
Oh, absolutely. Maybe.
And we found with that play on the circuit, any of the adjudicators we met didn't know it. Now, that can be a disadvantage as well as an advantage, but I think in some cases it was a bit of a disadvantage for us. Whereas in the All Ireland adjudicator, Amanda McDonough, she had seen the play. So, you know, and I mean, it was absolutely, all my dreams came true. I remember way back in 84 when we were doing the importance, and our local paper, the Clare Champion, interviewed me and another past pupil who was playing Cecily in the importance. And I was asked, like, what was my ambition? And I said, to win an All Ireland. Now, I was just thinking as an actress, you know, I wasn't thinking ahead of directing or anything. And I thought, well, I'll tell you that night in Curry, I said, I am going to savor this moment and be very calm about it because, by God, I've waited long enough.
Yeah.
And it was lovely. Yeah, it was a wonderful experience, I have to say.
Absolutely. And your cast and crew picked up awards that night.
That's right.
Which
I mean, it was like a dream come true, like, you know, when the first one, Best Supporting Actor, and then Best Actress and Best Actor, and I was going, my God, what's happening? You know, you couldn't sort of write the script for it, really. You know, it was just one of those nights. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you bring home an All Ireland to a town so well, or a village so well, or an area so well steeped in drama as Doonbeg, sure, it is like bringing home the Sam Maguire, like.
Oh, it is, Paddy. I mean, I couldn't believe it that evening. As you know, we didn't go to bed early, but it was more talking because, you know,
I was gone at 1 o'clock, Mary. I don't know.
You don't know, of course you don't. But like, even though I think we got about an hour's sleep, and then there was messages and there was all the, you know, the usual texts and whatever from people. But I didn't know what was going to happen in Doonbeg that evening. And when we arrived, I remember my husband and Pat Ahern, Pat had got Best Lighting, met us in Cree, which is just a few miles from Doonbeg. And there was bonfires and there were people out, and there was people like between Morton McInerney's and Balaha, which is the furthest end of the parish. So we did the grand tour, and then we came back to the hall, and it was just wonderful, and we had a great night. The only thing about it was, I mean, I constantly seemed to be playing for funerals. I had a funeral the following morning, so I wasn't too late going home. And then, sure, we were in Athlone, you know, first time in the Dean Crow on the Wednesday night. But as you know, anyone who's been there knows, like, it comes on top of the All Ireland, you know, and winning it. And I mean, you are mentally and physically exhausted, you know, at that stage. And we did all the schools. Of course, I went back to Doonbeg School where I had taught, and that was great, and brought it around to all the schools in the parish. So, as you say, it was like bringing the Sam Maguire home.
Yeah. It's fantastic. So the move to the Open, you took a break out in 2018 for personal reasons.
Yes.
And then in 2019, I admired when I seen the play that you were doing. I just thought, wow, this is just so courageous. You know what I mean? It was so courageous. But you pulled it off.
Yeah. Well, I suppose, Paddy, I'm the type of person I like to challenge myself. And of course, the cast would say that to me as well. You know, you never make it easy, you know. Mm-hmm. But like, what's the point in doing the safe play?
Yes, absolutely.
You know, that's the way I look at it. And actually in 2018, I was at summer school, and the play I had in my head at that stage was Buried Child by Sam Shepard. Mm-hmm. And but then, you know, that had to be shelved. So I started reading during 2018. I started reading more of Sam Shepard's plays.
Yeah.
And I really, really like them, you know. And I love plays. You know, I wouldn't do a comedy, you know, per se, or a farce. I love when there's humor within a play and when it highlights the tragedy or whatever other emotion is going on. And I think Sam Shepard is a master of that. And I figured I had the cast for Fool for Love. And it wasn't everybody's cup of tea. You know, it's not the one that's going to bring in the punters.
Yeah.
But there was a great satisfaction in doing it. And by God, it challenged us. And those bloody booming doors, will I ever forget them? We eventually got them. But it was so worthwhile. It was so intense, you know. And I think I'd say that my main actor and actress there were bruises everywhere because they were stepping each other off walls and beds and what have you. But it was high intensity, but it had to be like that.
Well, yeah.
You know, and sure, couldn't believe it, like our first year out to make Athlone was super, you know, and we thoroughly enjoyed it.
And just rewards for the work doing in by the cast, you know, it was the reward. Mary, when you're picking the play, obviously, when you're reading plays, you read with Anne-Marie, Ken, Mark, John, all them people in mind.
Charlie as well, Charlie Colleen,
they have shaped, I suppose, Doonbeg Drama Group along with yourself for the last maybe 7, 8, 10, 12 years, you know what I mean? Well-seasoned campaigners, and I'm sure you will again, hopefully, please God.
Hopefully, Paddy.
We will get to do more stuff. Mary, we talked earlier on there about summer school. You're a big advocate of summer school. I was on summer school with you on a couple of occasions. Right. The Thomas Conway course together. Summer school is really, really a fantastic, I suppose, event that we have in the amateur, organised with the DLI in the amateur movement, and you would encourage people to use it.
I really think, I mean, they can only take so many, but I don't think that enough groups, you know, send people there. Because in order, I was listening to John McGuire last week, and I think it was John that mentioned this about going on the festival circuit in order to raise your standards. You know, it's the same, and you learn from adjudicators by listening to them, you know, not to say he doesn't know what he's saying, you know what I mean? But summer school is just wonderful. You learn so much there. And I think it's because, and you know this personally, Paddy, it's a safe place. Do you know what I mean? In that you're in a class, usually an average of 20. And I mean, we've all done things within that space that we would never do outside. You know, you can be anyone, be anything. I remember my first one with Porrick in 2008. He sent some of us into another room and we all had to be cats. And this was my introduction to summer school. I mean, he threw us in at the deep end. And there I was, like, within 5 minutes, crawling around the floor, like, you know, trying to be a sexy cat or whatever. But, like, what you learn there, not only from the tutors, but also from talking to your classmates, from the class discussions, from talking to people at lunchtime. I mean, nobody talks about what's going on in the world outside, you know. Nobody talks about anything, you know. Sometimes you learn a bit about, when you get to know people, about their family, but it's just drama from morning until night. It's a real indulgence. And I mean, I would say that any actor or actress should experience it. And if they experience it once, they'll be addicted, definitely. It's just super. And I mean, the best of tutors are there, like I mentioned, Porrick, Jeff O'Keefe. I'm in trouble now because I'm naming names. Thomas Conway, like you said. We had Aaron Monaghan last year, you know. I mean, there's so many of them, you know, and I mean, they give everything, you know, And you come home. I always felt, now I come home feeling exhausted, all right, physically. But like up here, I would be on a high. As one of our cast says, she's wound. That's his word. I won't say who it is. But I would just be on a high, like, and think, oh my God, like, I'll do this. I could do this. I could do this, you know. And you're trying to introduce things that you've learned there. Sometimes you have to do it in a sneaky way, you know, because people would say, are we doing that every night? You know, that kind of thing. But there is a way to do it. I mean, I really think that, and the committee in charge of the summer school and the DLI works so hard. Like, people haven't an idea the amount that goes into that behind the scenes. And it's just, it's like being on a retreat. Now, this is ironic, but without the prayers and with everything else that goes with it. So a week of self-indulgence for all drama lovers.
Yeah, well, that's a great way to sum it up. Mary, you spent some time on the DLI board as well.
I did. I was for 4 years, as membership secretary. And it was quite an experience, and you know, just going to meetings and learning how things work. And I was in the 6 and 6 committee for a while and got to know a lot of people. But kind of in 2018-19, I just decided, look, I kind of made a decision, Paddy, when I retired from teaching, which I did in 2012. So it coincided with the start of my directing career, shall we say, which was good. But that I wasn't going to get involved maybe too much in the politics of anything. Because you know yourself, if you're in teaching and lots of other jobs, you know, you're on boards, you're on committees for this, that, and the other. So, but I'm a great supporter of the DLI as well as the ADCI. You know, I mean, amateur drama is, you know, I know here in Doonbeg, it would have been football in the past, but like our drama group is certainly one of the most active groups in the parish, you know, and the same for rural Ireland in particular. Now, I'm not saying anything about the urban centres, but like, it is so important, you know, and has been. I mean, you're going back to the start of Athlone in, when was it, Betty? Was it 60 something? You know, like there have been plays being done. I remember my aunt, one of my aunts, she's 96 at the moment, and she was in plays when she was young, you know. I mean, it's part of our DNA.
Absolutely. And I think it's going to be a very important part of, please God, when restrictions lift and people get vaccinated. I think amateur drama is going to be an awful important part of getting people out of rural isolation, let's say, or isolation, you know, that are not taking part of stuff.
We're doing a competition at the moment. We're Zoom rehearsing, and it's organised by Clare Drama Festival, Scariff, in conjunction with Scariff Bay Community Radio. So we've been doing that now since before Christmas, and Zoom rehearsals can't replace the real thing, you know. And it's a radio play, which is a different medium, but you know what? It's keeping us together. And as Pasha Hearn said to me, I roped in Pasha Hearn. Pasha hadn't acted for a long time. And he said, Mary, it's keeping us sane, you know, which it is in these times, Paddy, because any of us can't meet live, you know, and we're enjoying it now. We're at the technical side of it, and that's another ball game, as you well know, particularly since we can't be in the same room, you know, but it's great.
Mary, back in I think late 18, early 19, you were involved with a production with Bow Productions.
I was, yeah. Radine Dawn and Michelle Reed asked me, would I get involved in, it was site specific, and it was called Esker Lane. Now, I had never done site specific. I had a vague idea of what it was because Anne-Marie had done it in her course. And so, do you know what, Patty? In 2018, I had done a one act just in Doonbeg, and I needed a bit of drama therapy, shall we say. So I said, you know what? I'll do it.
Great.
Didn't know what I was letting myself in for. They sent me on the script, and it was very interesting. It was done in their own house, and all the rooms in the house were used, and it was based around the morning of the bride's wedding. So you had the kitchen where I was like Mrs. Doyle giving out the tea and the sandwiches. Go on, go on, go on. And there were so many of us in the kitchen. The audience, no more than 4 would come in. And we were first port of call. Then they would move on to the sitting room where the sister of the bride was having a bit of a breakdown. And then they would move on to the bride's bedroom. And it was like that. And then it finished up with us all outside the door. I don't know what the neighbors thought. Singing, going to the chapel, and the bride comes out, and then she makes a bolt and goes back in again. But it was very interesting. And we did that over, was it 2 weekends? But very tiring. Like it was about, I suppose, I don't know, 35, 40 minutes. Then we take a break of 5-10 minutes. Then you do the same thing again, break for lunch, and 2 more sessions in the afternoon. So it was actually harder than doing your standard play.
Yes, I know what you mean, yeah.
But a fantastic experience.
And did you enjoy acting again, like being directed?
I did. Because that was different, and I had, there were 2 of us, there were 2 aunts. Rita, I was Rita, and Hilary Madigan, who was with Ballali. Hilary was the other aunt, and she was from Dublin 4, and I was straight from the farm, like, you know, typecast. But anyway, and, you know, there was sort of a battle going on, a verbal battle between the 2 of us, you know, and I loved, we kind of bounced off each other, you know, and we had great fun. I actually enjoyed it. Yeah.
And then the film, the big screen.
I never thought I'd be in a film, but look, at the older you get, the madder you get.
Honest to God. With Irene, who we had on here on second week of the first series, you done something along with Irene.
Yeah, Irene contacted me in 2019, and she said a friend of hers was doing a short film, and he wanted somebody to play Irene's mother. And I kind of thought about it, and he was from the Hint, Clareman, working in London. I thought, go on, Mary, you might as well, do you know? So we did it. It was filmed in Liscannor and at the White Strand in Milltown, and a very short film. I'd say it's only about 8 or 10 minutes, but you know what a film is like. I mean, there are so many shots taken, and it was set. The premise of the film was that when the parents in this particular community, Irish community, got to a certain age, the son or the daughter had to kill them. So we were filming out in the hillside in the Hinch, and then James, I met the director, and he said, "Can you swim?" And I said, "Well, I'm okay, like, you know, I'm not exactly, you know, I won't be going to the Olympics." Well, he said, "There's one scene where you're going to have to be pushed underwater." Now, I live near the sea, so, you know, I'm not really afraid of the sea, but at the same time, so the funniest thing was the evening he decided to do the filming of that, where Irene would actually push me under the water. It was May, but it was cold and it was grey and the sea was rough enough.
Mm.
So Irene and I go out and we're trying to say our lines with the waves coming. And what happened, there was a cameraman there, a very experienced diver from Ennis. And thank God he was there, Ken. And we were doing our lines. We weren't doing the real thing. And the next thing, this wave came, down I went. And I believe I heard afterwards, of course, the director said, shoot that, that's a good one, you know. I was in a wetsuit and Irene was wearing a wetsuit as well, fortunately, but my God, it was cold, Paddy. Oh my God. But what I loved about that process was watching James, the director, at work, you know, because film is a different medium, just like a radio play is a different medium. And I enjoyed doing what I was doing, but it was more from the directing point of view, you know, that I did enjoy it. Yeah, it's a different experience. So I'm open to offers, you know, anything goes.
What I would be worried about for the rest of the cast and doing Beg, you know that line, I wouldn't ask it to do anything I wouldn't do myself. So that opens it all up for a lot of us. So
I've often said it to them, Paddy. I've often said it to them.
And all them people out there, just watch out what she comes up with next, lads. Mary, we're heading on in the year now, as we're in January, but I suppose as someone that's an advocate of amateur drama, we'd be hoping for the one act to happen, maybe.
Well, we'd be hoping, Paddy. I'm sure we have to keep positive. I mean, it's very hard to predict what's going to happen tomorrow or next week. You know, everything is changing out there, and we won't mention the C word, you know, we just won't mention it. But we'd be hoping, because I think everybody wants to be doing something, you know, and it would be a shame if the 1X can't go ahead, and disappointment again for Ennis, and you know, because like I think the 1X, I love going to the one. I have never done a 1X play for the circuit, but maybe this is the year where if it does go ahead, then there won't be enough festivals to accommodate them. I have a feeling.
Hopefully that will be the case. Hopefully.
Yeah, it would be wonderful, you know. And the 1Act circuit is fantastic. Like I love the 1Act All Ireland, and all the groups know each other, and you know, you have great fun there, and you get to meet everyone. As you well know, Paddy, the full-length circuit, it can be a lonely place because you go on, you do your play, you don't get to meet the other groups, you know.
Mm-hmm. Where at the 1Act, you get to meet all the groups, and
you do, yeah.
And you get to meet all the drama heads. That's in
exactly, yeah.
For people that know us both, they'll probably be saying that's the driest and the longest conversation that them two ever had in their life. But
cheers, Paddy. This is water.
Let me just say, Mary, it was an absolute pleasure to have you on Lockdown Conversations. Thank you so much for coming on with us. It was great to get an insight into Mary J. Egan. So thank you very much.
I think you know enough about me.
Folks, next week we have actor, director and adjudicator Jeff O'Keefe, who will be with us. He will be joining us for Lockdown Conversations. But for this week, that was Mary Egan. I'm Paddy Farley. This was Lockdown Conversations, and we'll see you all next week. Stay safe, everybody, and thank you.